Thank you.
I have many, many brothers and sisters out there. And actually, Bridget is right down the road from you. Bridget and Eric are in Costa Rica also.
I have swum in that pool behind you, Rob.
Oh,
That's
yes.
awesome. Are you
That's it.
are you up in Nosara?
No, I'm up in Puriscal near San Jose, but we
Oh, okay, okay, cool. Up in the more in the
but
mountains in
we
the
just
valley.
we just bought a house at Playa Matapalo, just north of Dominical. So hopefully we'll see you more in person.
Yeah, that'd be lovely. I'd love it. Come swim again.
Yeah, they were there when we were
Same
living
here.
at your house where
Yeah,
you're now.
right.
So I'm going to come back and just say, of course, Rob is going to say a lot more to it by all means, but um, Rob entered into this beautiful monastery or in the tradition of Bonn as a student and made his way all the way up to become the president of the monastery and be holding the reins and holding this tradition alive, helping the Rinpoches, helping this tradition be alive in the world. His work is valuable to thousands of people. And I also bow to the parallels of shamanism. Bon may be the most ancient shamanic practice on the planet. It is said to be 18,000 years. Again, I won't go too deep into it because we have Rob here to share it with us. I'm just going to say that shamanism through yoga, through Tai Chi and Qigong, through all these cultures, is in essence a light for us to know ourselves, know thyself, is our ways, ancient ways to realize what we are. And for me, shamanism 25 years ago, when I ventured out to find healers in the mountains of Peru and the Andes and in the jungles of Peru to save my life from stage 4 cancer, having given a death sentence from John Hopkins, or diagnosis anyway, and the National Institute of Health, I found ways to heal myself. And I've found that there's a big prejudice of what shamanism is. The word shaman is just overused and misunderstood in so many ways. If I would say something today, after having very close relationships for close to 20 years with my beloved teachers in Peru, family, we raised our children together, we've lived together, we have almost died together. It has become a bigger part of who I am and what my life is and my understanding. I would say the shamanism is naturalism. It's not paganism. It's not a religion. It's not about the magic. It's about mysticism and finding ways and having a handbook to understand what we each are, what we are as individuals, and be able thus with more essential tools than what were given to us after the Dark Ages in Europe and the witch hunt and everything that we know in history. Much deeper tools of understanding our own nature. So with that said, again, it's an honor to be here with you. It's an honor to see you at your place where you have wonderfully given to us for quite a while back then when we lived in Costa Rica. And I'll give you the microphone, the mic and the video and the camera.
All right.
Welcome, Rob.
Yeah. So welcome Jaguarpath. It's great to be here with you. And also I see quite a few names other than Bridget that I know from the Lineage, which is the name of the organization I'm a part of. Greg and Angie, Alexandra, and I think Diana. Oh my gosh, my other relative, Aiel, is here. That's super cool. It's so great to see you, Aiel. And a few others. Sheila, I think also we might know each other, although cameras are not all on. So greetings, blessings to all. I just want to make one point of clarification. I don't run a monastery. I've got the monks run me more than I have anything to do with them. Bön in the West, there are multiple organizations created by different teachers from the Bön tradition, from Tibet, to Nepal. And the largest of those currently is called Lineage. And it was founded by my teacher, Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche, who I met in 2010, 2 years after I came to this tradition. And I run his Western organization. We don't have any monasteries. We do have 5 retreat centers around the world, and we teach in usually 7 or 8 different languages, sometimes as many as 13 or 14, but it depends on volunteers and translators being available. So we're sort of a very Western-centric approach towards teaching Bön. It is a deeply monastic tradition today. There are real shamans in the tradition in Nepal, in Tibet, and even in India. But the vast majority of practitioners really come from more of a monastic tradition. We'll talk about that a little bit. But yeah, so just welcome. I thought I'd just say a few words other than the fact that, Ray is a great blessing in my life, and his wife, my wife, even more so. His wife, also a very dear friend and sister now, and I don't think she's with us, but greetings and love to Nina too. And thank you so much for this invitation. I'd like to start by opening sacred space. And I want to do that, if you'll bear with me for just a few minutes. I'd like to do something from my tradition, which is really more focused on opening inward sacred space. But then I'd like to do something a little bit more of an invocation that's probably a little more familiar-ish to people in the Jaguar path, because it's very much based on the opening of sacred space that Ray teaches and other truly shamanic traditions teach. And then we'll come back in and talk about other stuff, and we'll dive into things you can do, which is my real focus. Like, if you can't do something and change something, it doesn't really interest me. I'm not a super intellectual. So with that said, I'd like to just do a prayer. It's called the Lama Naljor. It's very short, Guru Yoga. Some of you know it, and you're welcome to join me. And I'm going to change to musician settings, so you'll hear the birds in the background possibly, and the cicadas too. And following the Guru Yoga, which is a very short prayer, I'll do it once in Tibetan, once in English. I'm also going to do what's called a ritual mandala offering, which is just a gesture with the hands that you'll be able to see. I'll put my camera so you can see. And then with that one, it's also just it's a 4-line offering and a 4-line prayer. We make a mudra, and we imagine that what we call the 3 billion-fold universe. So everything that can be imagined, everything that exists, has existed, will exist, you're offering it up to your own enlightened nature, to all the enlightened beings. And it's a part of our practice that we do in many rituals that we actually do 100,000 times when we're accumulating practices as our preliminary practices towards meditation for some of us. It's my favorite thing to do probably in all of Bön, and it's very simple. Then we'll go on and do a quick invocation and open a more traditional sacred space. So if you'd like to join me for Lama Naljor, you are welcome to, but you can also just listen. It's the quick prayer asking for help to recognize your own self-nature, as how you'll hear in the English. From the crown of my head, palace of great bliss, I pray to you, benevolent root Lama. O precious one, grant me the blessings to recognize my own true nature as a Buddha. So with the mandala offering, we're just going to do the 4-line mandala offering. So I won't do the full 8 lines, I'll just do the offering, but I'll do the gestures also at the same time. So if you know this, again, you're welcome to join me, and if you don't, it doesn't matter. Thank you. So that first prayer, the first 4 lines that I sang, was an invocation to request blessings. So in this tradition, we visualize our teacher as an enlightened being, or see them as an enlightened being. We visualize that the blessings from all the Buddhas, from the past, from the future, from the present, flow through them and to us, through the crown of our head, so that we too can recognize our own self-nature, our nature of enlightenment. So if you're familiar with Buddhism or you're familiar with Bön, we don't think that our enlightened nature, our highest self, is something we have to build. It's something we have to cultivate, because through endless cycles of time, through samsara, through birth after birth after birth, we've lost contact, we've lost sight of that lives inside of us. And so Buddhahood, Buddha nature, is this constant, unshakable recognition and integration with that pure essence of awareness that allows us then to express compassion and wisdom in everything that we do. So that's our inspiration for our practice. And the second prayer, the mandala offering with all the movements and the mudras, is, like I said, we basically are saying, how amazing. Like, there's this entire world system with Mount Meru in the center of it, and all the different continents and all the different beings. And outside of that is like billions of universes that we can't even imagine. And everything in it I'm offering up. It doesn't belong to me. It's a gift for all of existence, for all the Buddhas. I'm not in control. It's just everything I can imagine I'm offering, even things I can't imagine I'm offering, whether it's mine or not mine. Please receive this and then bless me again to self-recognize my own nature. So that's 2 of the prayers we frequently do in our tradition. But I also really connect. I'm more eclectic. My main practice is Bön. But the traditional way of opening sacred space to the 4 directions is, to me, such a profound way of all of us being connected by something that we can share, that we're accustomed to. And it's a way of, I don't think I would have known about this practice if I hadn't met Ray. So it's also something I've received from him, but it's kind of become my own thing at the same time. So if you'll bear with me one more time, and this will, I think, help, because it's all in English, bring us closer together and create a sacred space for all of us, not just internally, but everywhere. Greetings, blessings, welcome to all sentient beings, all beings in this neighborhood, all beings in this time, here, and in all the other neighborhoods, the places of those who are connected here together on Zoom. Greetings and blessings to all those who dig and crawl and tunnel and burrow beneath the earth, those who walk and creep and crawl and slither and slide and hop across its surface, those who fly in the sky, those visible and invisible. Good morning to the sun, to the moon, who are both up overhead in the sky here in Costa Rica at this time. Look down on us kindly, shine your light upon us, let us find our own light within. We call upon the 4 directions to hold this sacred space for us, the powers of the south, the west, the north, and the east, their protectors, the serpent, jaguar, hummingbird, and eagle, or condor. We look on the elements also to hold this space for our bodies, for this entire world system, the waters, the fire, the air, and the earth. We ask for the blessings of Pachamama, Mother Earth, who is endlessly generous and bountiful to all sentient beings, who gives us everything that we need to thrive, to live, endless abundance. We look to our Father of the Sky, Tata Inti, Padre Cielo, open, clear, able to hold everything, the sun, the moon, the stars, galaxies, all things that appear in space, give space to without judgment. May we, like our Mother the Earth, have abundance in our lives. May we be able to be generous like her to all beings who come into our presence, sharing what we have. May we look to our Father of the Sky. May we be open and clear without judgment, able to embrace all that's within, all that's without ourselves, without judgment, with clarity and with wisdom. May we be their union, Mother Earth, Father Sky, in our lives, in our thoughts, in our words. May we all, husbands, wives, mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, parents, children, family, friends, strangers, colleagues, neighbors, predator and prey, each and every one alike, live in a state of ayini, right relationship, reciprocity. May we support one another. May we respect one another. May we live in our own truth, with integrity, with honesty, with compassion and wisdom. And by doing so, may we be of benefit to ourselves and to all sentient beings. May it be so. So I invite you in your own way, if you like, to just feel the sacred space that we're in, the sense of community, connected through the wonders of our technology, but also especially to the land where you are, to the place where you are, the room that you've made, the environment around you. Maybe just rooting down through your hips, rising up through your crown, being that space of earth and sky. In that space, just feel your breath a few times coming in, if you can, through the nose, deep breath in. Just let it out through the mouth without effort. Kind of like a sigh, but just letting it go. Let's do that 3 more times. With that, just come back to a gentle, steady breath. And in Bön, as in so many traditions, our essential nature, sometimes called the heart mind, sometimes our self-realization, it is embodied in the space of the heart chakra. So it can be a nice way to feel that connection to yourself, to others, by putting your hand on your heart, knowing that whatever is going on, however you feel, whatever you think, there is this inherent, deep state of awareness that never fades, it never dies, it's never born. There's nothing you can really say about it, but you can know it. It's there. And it's a source of, even in the darkest times, a calmness, a collectedness, a strength, and an abiding joy that through our practice, through attentiveness, we can cultivate that strength, that connection. If you like, you can put your hand down. If your eyes are closed, you can open your eyes. So thank you. I keep looking down because that's where I can see you. But it's so good to be here, to see all of you who have your screens on, so many of you, and to be seen by you. And again, thanks to Ray, to Nina, to the Jaguar Path for this invitation. This is actually the first time, I believe that I have, second time, I take it back, it's the second time that I've actually shared these practices outside of my own organization or for other lamas that I study with in the tradition. So it's exciting for me. I'm going to do pretty much the same thing with less Tibetan and fewer prayers. The Bonpos like a lot of prayers. So we're going to really focus on what can we do. I want to talk for a little while. I wanted to say a few words about Bön, and then I wanted to say a few things about shamanism, because it was really kind of interesting to me when Ray put this up on the web. one of my dear friends and one of my Western teachers in this tradition said, be really careful if you're going to talk about Bön and shamanism. I was like, huh, that's interesting because my teacher does it all the time. But I think what Ray said is true. There's like this word can mean so many different things to so many people. So I want to give some context. I mean something very simple when I talk about that, and we'll get to that too. So Bön is reported by itself, probably the oldest known existing spiritual tradition in the world. I'm sure it's not. I'm sure there may be older things that just aren't as documented. Bön is definitely at least a few thousand years old. You know, it goes back, and by a few thousand, I mean there's at least archaeological evidence back to 6,000 BC, I think, 5,500 to 6,000 BC in the regions of the Himalayas, in Tibet and Nepal. But the self-reported tradition, according to the lineage and the history of the teachers, is that the first Buddha to this planet, his name was Tanpa Shenrab, and he came from another land and he came to Tibet, and he came 18,073 years ago. So how they know that? There was no written history in Tibet. There was no written language for Tibetans generally until the 7th century AD. So it was an oral tradition. There were written languages. There's a written language called Shengsheng that's much, much older than Tibetan that was used in the region. It's not entirely understood anymore. There are words still used in some of our prayers that use the Shengsheng language that goes back at least another probably 1,000 years or so. But before that, it's purely an oral tradition. So it was taught teacher to student, mouth to ear. And there were no texts, again, probably until, at least the 6th or 7th century AD, and then most texts were written down in the 7th, 8th, and 9th centuries and later. But from the time before Tanpa Shenrab, whenever that was, 18,000 years ago, in Tibet, it said that like most spiritual activities were really built around sacrificing animals and things to the gods and the local spirits, and trying to find ways to work with the elements of nature. But it was very much a practice of blood sacrifice, like some traditions still have even today. And Tanpa Shenrab saw this and was like, this is not helping these people. And he gave them a whole different set of teachings. So he taught them how to make things called torma, which are symbolic representations of the ritual slaughters that were being done. And so instead of having to kill animals and take on that karma, you make something out of barley and butter and and herbs and spices and some red dye you can get out of the earth, and you make something that represents that offering that is just as good. You use incense for fumigation. You can use water. You don't have to use blood. So there is this deep transformation in the practices that Tibetans already had. But then he also started teaching things like ways of divination, life force and soul retrieval, death ransom, and meditation, and multiple kinds of meditation. And so the entire teachings of Bön, which are vast, we have the canon at our retreat centers, and it takes up a wall. It's hundreds of texts. I think it's 438. Somebody else will probably put this in the comments. I never get numbers right, but it's in the hundreds. And then there are the authorized commentaries of that number in the hundreds also. But all of this comes back from Tanpa Shenrab. And then there are some practices that come from very highly realized or enlightened beings who come after Tanpa Shenrab, who teach additional practices or offer expansion of practices. So that's where it comes from. It was the original practice for basically everybody in the Himalayas. Buddhism came from India around the 7th century, and Buddhism very quickly supplanted Bön and most of the other indigenous traditions in the region. They all continue to exist, but were less practiced. They were not the official state religion anymore after the 8th century. And there were even periods of time where, just like in other traditions, people think Buddhists are really nice, but there were monks burning down other monks' monasteries. There were, they would hire bandits to go besiege and waylay the other ones, and it was as bloody and violent as any other place. And so there was a lot of persecution of the Bonpos, so they became less and less. And that went on probably, I think, until the 11th century. Many texts had to be hidden. Many people were forcibly converted. All the same stuff you see about in Europe and we think is so awful about us, all happened in Asia the same way. People are people. But through practice, we can change those things. We can transform. And that's what today is about. So that's really about Bön. I don't really want to say much about me. I met these practices in 2007. There's a retreat center 2 hours from where I live in Virginia. I had never heard of it before, even though I'd lived there for 25 years. And I was looking for a very specific yogic practice because I met Ray through Eileen, and I met Eileen because I went to her yoga class and was immediately smitten. And after a couple of years, she noticed me. But there was a very intensive pranayama, breathing exercises I was fascinated by called Tumo. And this is the one, if you've ever heard of it, it's where the monks and the nuns go out, sometimes naked in the wintertime in the mountains of Tibet, and they cut a hole in the ice and they use their body heat to dry sheets. And the sign of how good you practice, actually, a Lama was just sharing with me that in Tibet, you know when you've come across the cottage or the cave of a really, really good Tummo practitioner, because even in the snow around their cave or around their cottage will have melted, and the flowers, even the snow time, will be coming out because there's so much heat being generated. So I was like, wow, that sounds cool. And the only person teaching that in Europe or America at the time was my teacher, Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche. And when I Googled this practice, he was finishing a 3-year cycle of teachings 2 hours away from my house. And it ended the day that I looked for him. I'm just like, I got to meet this guy. So that's what got me to Bön. I wasn't looking for a teacher. I wasn't a Buddhist. I was already practicing yoga. I was doing a little meditation. And when he started to talk, and he's very Western, he has a family. He's no longer a monk. He teaches in a very, very accessible way, but always back authentic with the teachings and works from the teachings. And I just was all in. I was like, I need to listen to this guy because I really need to change my life. I was working 70 hours a week. I was pretty much unhappy pretty much all the time. My kids weren't very happy with me. I ended up divorced. So it was a mess. And through these practices, slowly, things began to change. Things began to transform, which I probably imagine every one of you, whatever practice is at the core of your own, probably has done for you as well. That's something I think all real traditions have in common. In 2012, I started volunteering. In 2014, he asked me to become board chair. I used to work in finance, venture investments, and private equity investments. And so I was working with startups, and I left that to work full-time as a volunteer for him. So I retired early. And that's what I do now. We have 5 retreat centers. We have one in Serenity Ridge, is in Virginia. That's our headquarters. We have a little one in Crestone, which is really built for dark retreats, where you go completely into the dark with no light and no visitors, and you just sit in the dark for up to 49 days. And that's an amazing opportunity. That's a very small retreat center with 4 cabins. We have 2 in Mexico, a huge one. We have the largest stupa in North America. A stupa is that kind of triangular sacred image that you see in all across Tibet and the Mongolian steppes, sometimes in Nepal. It's a symbol of enlightened mind. And our retreat center there is built like a stupa, and it's huge. It seats about 200 people. We have a retreat center in Poland also. And we have a second smaller retreat center in Mexico. So we are an international organization. The practices are all online. You can, ligmincha.org is where he teaches from, and most of our other lamas and geshes teach through, including our Western teachers. Yeah, and so yoga is where I started, Bön is where I ended up, and then shamanism kind of fell in by really through knowing Ray and through knowing Nina and meeting their teachers twice I got to meet their teachers, once in Costa Rica and up once when he lived in Lennox, Mass. And that was really profound. And then I've had some opportunities here in Costa Rica to study with medicine teachers from Mexico and then also from the Amazonian River Basin. And so my own practice is a little eclectic, but it's really at the heart is the Bön tradition, which I feel it really kind of saved my life. Yeah, there's no reason for you to know more about me unless you have specific questions. I'm not that interesting. I mostly practice and hang out and work. The shamanic aspect of Bön, I told you, originally it came from a very purely shamanic tradition. It gave up blood sacrifice. It gave up animal sacrifice thousands and thousands of years ago, but it still today retains things that are common practices like life force retrieval, soul retrieval, death ransom. For somebody who's really, really sick, you actually have to go ransom their life or their soul back from the God of the dead. But more than that, at the heart of Bön is this deep understanding and connection to nature. Ray said naturalism. One of my teachers who just turned 100 last week, and I'll talk about him again in a minute, shared once when he was in France, somebody was like, you talk about these invisible beings all over the place, and like, I don't get it. Like, do they really exist, or are you being a metaphorical? And he looks at him and goes, you might not believe in them, but they might not believe in you. Like in the corner of the room there's at least 20,000 other beings. You just can't see them. And so there's this just deep acknowledgement that the world around us is alive, that there is some level at which, the earth is alive, stones are alive, trees have awareness, animals have awareness, all the beings we can't see have awareness, to the point that the five elements even, which are earth, in our tradition are earth, water, fire, air, and space, they're actually represented and understood being goddesses. They're called dakinis or chondro. And so they're literally, the elements are goddesses in our world manifesting for our benefit as the things we can touch and the water that we can drink and the fire that warms us. And so there's a sacred connection to everything. There are many rituals for blessing the land, of trying to bring balance back when we've done something wrong with the land. You have to do all kinds of rituals to build a building on a spot. You have to make sure the Nagas are okay with it, the land spirits are okay with it, the tree spirits are okay with it. You have to do divinations. You have to make them offerings. You have to, sometimes we were building a building, for example, and a lama came and he saw what we were doing. He goes, oh my God, you can't do it there. Those trees is where all the Nagas live. And those trees are going to die next year anyway. So cut those down and move your building 8 feet. So we had to go back to the architect. We were literally ready to break ground. We had to move the entire plans 8 feet. And sure enough, those trees were dying. And the tree that was flourishing is alive today and is a really amazing tree. It just really took off. So the lamas are deeply connected to the earth. And so there's this shamanic aspect of not just a deep respect for the natural world, a recognition of its autonomy, its inherent right to freedom, and its own being, but there's also, I think, the other thing that's shamanic about that I want to emphasize in what we're doing today is not rituals and ransoms and life force retrieval and all these things that can be really complicated. But Bön is really focused on, let's just do something that works, right? Like, you don't have to understand if you're sick and the doctor gives you an antibiotic. He doesn't say, okay, look, we're going to give you a crash course in biochemistry, a short course in physics, so that when you understand it, the medicine you take is going to work and it's going to fight the infection. You don't have to know anything except take the medicine 3 times a day or whatever the doctor says. And the practices that we do, understanding can help, but the practices just work. And so there's this sense, it's not anti-intellectual, but it's an acknowledgement that, if it works, you can certainly study more about it, but you also don't really need to. You can just do it because it works. So there are breathing exercises we can do simply because they help us. There are movements we can make simply because you can feel and experience the benefit for yourself. If they don't work, you shouldn't do them. And if you have to study for 3 years before you feel the benefit, yeah, maybe you should have tried something different. Maybe you should have done yoga or Tai Chi, karate or gone swimming or whatever. So practicality is a really big part of that. And when I look at other shamanic traditions, they can do some really complicated things, but mostly they're focused on how do I live in this world? How do I strengthen my life force? How do I pacify, the obstacles that can be around me? How do I stay in harmony and in balance with the natural world around me? What can I do to support all the life, all the abundance, all the diversity that's here? And Bön very much has that in it. And so while the tradition today looks deeply monastic, probably 95% of all the teachers in the Bön tradition are monks or nuns, mostly monks, but also nuns. In Tibet, it's more of a mix, but in the West, it's more monks. Even that monastic side has retained this sort of these shamanic elements of practicality and deep reverence for the earth and for all of life, physical, non-physical, and for ancestors and spirits and things like that. And so it does have these shamanic elements, but they're not emphasized in the way that you would find like in the qero or in the Amazonian River Basin or necessarily in Native American theologies and things like that, at least not in my experience, though some of you may have different experiences. So I want to stop there and kind of dive into what we want to talk about today. But before that, are there any questions? Does anybody want to ask anything about Bön or have questions about me? You can just use your little hand raise thing at the bottom. I'll make space. Bön is spelled exactly like Emmy, how you said, B-O-N. That's it, with a capital B. And usually we put the little 2 dots over the O, like they do in German, the umlaut for its Bön. More almost like B-U-N, but not quite. But probably 50% of the time you see the word, it doesn't have the umlauts. It's often frequently called Yungdrung Bön. Yungdrung in Hindi or in Sanskrit is swastika, which means eternal. So the eternal Bön is the eternal practice. But it's pretty simple. And yeah, B-O-N is how we translate it from Bön. And it basically just means practice. Oh, yeah. How do the lamas, the ones who come to the West, most of them speak English or we have a translator, so it's pretty easy. Honestly, they are the most techno-savvy people I know. They taught me to use WhatsApp. They literally, one of the lamas who was at our retreat center downloaded WhatsApp on my phone, or excuse me, WeChat back then, probably 15 years ago, because in Tibet, everybody has a mobile phone, but nobody has a computer. And phone calls are too expensive, so they WhatsApp each other. My teacher teaches in Tibetan on WhatsApp to like 400 Tibetans around the world. And he just leaves them messages, and they can ask questions. And it's kind of the communication channel par excellence. But the website, I'll type it for everyone. There's 2, and I'll send you. I'm going to use a couple of slides. I can't type today. Lineage.org. That's kind of the gateway to all the things that we do internationally for Lineage. We have organizations in I think 9 countries in Europe. We have 3 in South America. Mexico, we have 22 or 23 practice groups. We have a few in the US. Right now, none in Canada. England, Ireland, a little bit in Korea, maybe a few in China. That's Japan, Australia. That's about it. Russia, lots in Russia. And there are no Western lamas. So I don't have a title. I'm just a guy who's been authorized to share the practices. So everything I'm sharing today, my teacher has authorized me and given me his blessing to share with other people. He thinks it's great that there's kind of things are going out in the world in different directions. And he often teaches outside of our organization. But being able to share these practices, I don't call myself a teacher. I'm more of a guide or an instructor because I really want to separate myself from, like my teacher, Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche, went to the monastery at the age of 10, and he studied 8 to 12 hours a day, 6.5 days a week for 16 years. And then he was allowed to go teach other people and share practices. And that's probably kind of typical. And the exams take weeks and they're really intense. They're all oral. You have to debate and debate and debate on whatever topic they tell you to debate, on whatever side of the argument they want you to take, and you have to defend it really well. Even if you don't believe it, you have to be able to defend it. So it's a many year process. There are lay practitioners. There are a number of us Western instructors or teachers. I was probably practicing for a decade before I was allowed to share anything. And but there's a practice called the Nandro. Actually, a few people here I think are doing actually. It's called the 900,000 accumulations. And so the Nandro is really the preparation for preparing the mind to have the stability and the focus and the openness to be able to do quote unquote higher practices like the teachings in Dzogchen. the highest form of meditation that we have in Bön. And so you do 300,000 of 4 different mantras, or 100,000 of 4 different mantras. So 400,000 mantras. You do 100,000 prostrations. You do the mandala operated. You do 100,000 of those. You do 100,000 of several different prayers. And so it takes quite a while. It's a pretty big commitment. And then there's a cycle of teachings called the experiential transmission that ends, if you want, in what I mentioned earlier, the dark retreat, where you can go into the dark for up to 49 days in order to really recognize your own nature of mind, the emptiness of mind, but it's endless dynamic energy that comes out of that emptiness. And not everybody, most people don't do that, but it's pretty an amazing practice. That's probably the most intense thing we do or offer. And so, yeah, so right now there are no Westerners. We're just starting to talk about how to do that because we recognize that without Westerners becoming lamas, the tradition probably won't endure in the West. But it's a difficult conversation when you have a tradition that hasn't authorized lay people to be a lama for at least the last 3,000 or 4,000 years. It's a little hard to change the opinion and the consensus about how it should be. So we're working on it slowly, slowly, or as they say in Tibetan, kale, kale, slowly, slowly. Yeah, so no titles, just I'm just a guy. And all the other Western teachers were just men and women sharing the practices our teachers have told us we can share. That's it. Yeah. Okay. So no other questions. Then you don't need to know anything about us, me. I told you what I want to share about Bön. I think, did I say everything? Yeah. So the one other thing I would say is that for our tradition, like so many indigenous traditions, lineage is just super, super important. So like I have a dear friend, Geshe Yungten. And I remember talking to him. He's from Dolpo in Nepal. It's the highest village in the world. Their village is at, I think, 17,400 feet, 17,600 feet, something like that. It's way up there, above the tree line. And it's a 7-day walk from the nearest road. And I asked, about his family. He goes, oh. Well, if you go back through time, they don't have names like grandfather, uncle, things like that. He goes, my brother uncle, 47 generations ago, was the head of this monastery in blah, blah, blah. And so ever since then, one son has always been a monk ever since 47 generations ago. And I'm like, wow, like I know my great grandfather. I mean, I know he was, I didn't meet him, but that's as far back as I know is like 2 generations. So like 47 is not uncommon for people in this tradition to go back. And then they're written from the 7th century and 8th century. Like the prayer I was playing at the beginning, like 5 minutes of it is just the recitation of the teachers who taught the teacher, who taught the teacher, who taught the teacher, who taught the teacher, who gave the guy who wrote the prayer. And it's literally pages of it goes on. And so that's, centuries and centuries of lineage embodied in that prayer. So it's super, super important for them to know how your authority came, like where it came from, because like I forget where in the Bible it says, is the word alive in the is the word alive in the spirit? The word is alive, but on the page, the word is dead. Like it's the living energy, the vitality of the breath that we have. It's the ability to convey to another person that gives you the power. It's the blessing energy that can come that conveys the power to then guide others, not reading the words and figuring it out with your mind. So that's super, super important for them. Yeah, that's the only other thing I wanted to say. So with that, I'd like to just kind of dive into practices with the time we have. I think we have time to do everything. And I want to come back to Yongsan Rinpoche. I'm going to just share an image because it encapsulates what I want to share. And that is, here we go. Not that, this, right? So Yongsan Rinpoche has the best example of why you practice that I've ever heard. I was sharing it with Ray yesterday. His English is okay, but he's 100 now, so his English is not always very clear. But if maybe 15 years ago, somebody asked him a question, and he goes like this. He goes, when I do this, I can do 2 things. I can hold on to something really hard, or I can punch you. That's about all my fist is good for. I can bang on things, hit, and hold. But if I open my hand, I can shake your hand, I can wave at you, I can eat a meal, I can play the piano, I can write a letter. Like an open hand can still make a fist, but this is so rich. So why do you want to live your life like this when you could live your life like this? I was like, wow, that's really good advice. And so the practice is like the image in the open hand. When you open your hand up, you can receive something. But when you close your hand, there's not much you can get because everybody's going to be afraid of you and stay away. So this idea of being open-handed, open-hearted, the idea of being able to be as open and as clear as we can is the sole point of our practice. Because as we do that, that enlightened nature, that is essence of ourselves, of all beings, will not only come through us, but we'll gain the capacity to see it in other people. And so we do practices that help us get rid of the things that cause us to do this. And that's the next step. So if you want to talk about the complete, people I know like to conceptualize, what's the energy body really? What's the subtle body? What are the nadis? What are the chakras? What are the channels? What are the winds? You can get so complicated. This is just a simplified map of a more complex map of all the different deities and their activities inside of the human body. So it can get super, super complicated. And, or you could look like this. You say, oh, that's the same thing. And so we're going to focus on really simple. This is really simple. And so inside of our body, in this tradition, we have a subtle body. It's the energy body. And the energy body, the central axis of it is a channel that runs from the crown of our head, and it kind of opens to the crown, and it runs down. It's about as thick as your thumb, straight down to about 4 inches below your navel. So if you were to, I'm going to change my camera so you can actually see like that. So about 4 inches below your navel where your little finger is, that's where the channels meet. And so the blue channel goes from the crown to the bottom. And then you have 2 channels that go from your nostrils behind your eyes, up, back down, and they hook and they join the central channel right there. And these are the main channels that the prana flows through our body. And that central channel is the axis that the things we call chakras or qero, in Tibetan it's qero, are aligned along that central axis. And so I would encourage you, whether you believe in the energy body, you believe in channels, and you believe in chakras, the advice I was given, which I think is really useful, is even if you don't think it's real, try to imagine it, because the power of bringing your attention to a place in your body or to a situation in your body brings energy to it. And we can feel that. If we put our energy in our heart, our attention in our heart, we feel our heart. If we put it in our throat, we feel our throat. And so just by saying, okay, I'm going to visualize this thing, you can clear energy that you can associate with it. And so even the power of visualization with no belief has some power. But if you can actually feel it and experience it, then it's going to even have more power. So at wherever you are with your understanding and your thoughts about energetic work, this system is still worth giving a try to, because the visualization is a tool for integrating the body, the breath, and the awareness into a single place. And that has lots of power. And we see that all the time. And you can show that there are all kinds of places, even in Western medicine, where we can see that awareness does lend healing to the body. So we're going to work on something called the 9 breaths. So this central channel, this is the main channel I was talking about. When it has obscurations in it, it's a channel of light. We see it as just pure blue, like just before sunset, that deep blue energy of the sky, that clarity of the sky. So this is a channel of ultimate wisdom and bliss. But when it's obscured, it's our anger. No, it's not anger, excuse me. It's our confusion. It's our doubt. It's our not knowing. It's our indecision. It's like, I don't know who I am. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know if I believe this. That's obscurations energetically in the central channel. The right channel, the white channel, is the masculine channel, and it's associated with that closed fist that's punching. It's aversion. I don't want this, pushing away, or it's anger, like I want to destroy it. I don't want it near me. I want to get it out of here. And so when we're angry, we see that as being obstructions inside of that white channel, blocking that pure flow of the white light. The red channel is the feminine energy of the body. And this is associated with desire. It's red because of desire is often associated with being red, with passion, like Valentine's Day, that was just a few weeks ago. And that's not that pushing away, but it's that holding on energy of not letting go with the fist. And so it's the, I really need this. I have to have that. I won't be happy if I don't get those. We have these kinds of energies all the time in us, and that holding on, like, sometimes when we lose a beloved partner through divorce or through death or whatever, somebody can't move on because they're so attached to the relationship they had. They're not open to the possibility of a life that didn't have that relationship. And so they get caught in this, this deep sorrow because they can't, that grasping energy just can't let go. So there are practical ways of working with that energy. And the first one I want to share with you is called the 9 breaths of purification. It's really simple. It's just 9 breaths. So all you have to do is first you connect to whatever's alive in you. And if you're like super happy today, nothing's bothering you, you're not attached to anything right now, you're just like, okay, I feel great, but I'm going to use the breath to feel even greater. But most of us, there's something in the back of our head. There's something we woke up thinking about or something that we couldn't quite fall asleep thinking about last night. And that's what's alive in us. Or, that relationship that, you're not thinking about it now, but last week you were still thinking about, oh, this thing at work that happened to me. And he said that, and I can't believe he said that to me. Now, like all that stuff is going on in our minds. Like those are the obscurations to our self-nature. So we just connect to those things that keep drawing our attention, that are not love and joy and compassion and just evenness in our sense of being. And then we're going to use our breath to clear those things. And we're going to clear whatever energy of aversion with 3 breaths. So out the right side. Then we're going to do 3 breaths through the left nostril, out through to clear our attachment. And then we're going to breathe through both nostrils. And we're going to visualize that the breath is coming up and out the crown of the head and ejecting whatever confusion or ignorance or doubt we have, so that we can just rest in this open clarity like the expanse of the sky. We can see things as they are. And go, oh, it's not that bad. Sometimes it's not that easy. I once got in a really big argument with somebody that was very dear to me, and I had to do this what I'm about to teach you. I did like 27 times in a row because I was so mad. But it got better, it got better, it got better. And I got exhausted, so it worked. So we're going to do 3 breaths each, right? The first 3 breaths we're going to take our thumb to our ring finger. In Bön, negative energies, obscuring spirits, just like heavy energy. It's called gek, actually, often in Tibetan. I know, Ray, you've got a word for this stuff too in your tradition too, just that dark, dense energy that you just want to get out, right? It's like it just
Hucha. Hucha.
hucha. It's a great
Hucha.
word. That's another gek and hucha. We're going to get the gek and hucha out, right? And so you don't want to let it in when you're getting it out. So you put your thumb to the base of your ring finger. And in Tibetan, that's why we usually wear rings on our ring fingers, because it actually seals off the door to those heavier energies coming in, and it makes it harder for them to affect us. So we're going to empty the breath. And if you can't breathe through your nose, just pretend and breathe through your mouth. I have to do that when I have allergies. It's no big deal. But if you can breathe through your nose, you'll close your right nostril. You'll breathe into about the count of 6. And you can visualize that breath coming up and down that channel, going to the juncture, and you just switch. You breathe out, up the right channel, and it comes out. And as you're breathing out, it's like a rocket taking off. If you've ever watched like from Cape Canaveral, it's like really slow, really slow. It's building, 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 and then boom, it's out of sight, right? And so that breath is like, so it's zip and out. Is like, so the end of the breath is more powerful than the beginning. We're just going to do that 3 times, feeling with each breath that the power of the breath and the power of our concentration is just letting us release. It's like unclogging a pipe. When you take a plunger and you're just like unclogging a stopped sink, and you don't need to know what's stopped up in there. You just plunge it until it comes out. Or you use just drain snake if you can't get the plunger to do it. And so we're just clearing it out. It doesn't go anywhere because it's just our own mind that's obscuring us. So you don't have to worry about where it goes afterwards. It just dissolves. And then we're going to do the same thing with the left hand. 3 breaths in through the right, about 6 count. Out through the left. Just breathe through your mouth if you have to. Same, that power with the breath. And then we're going to let our hands rest in our lap. If you can keep your thumbs on your ring fingers, that's ideal. But if you can't, it's really uncomfortable, your hands are cramping, don't worry about it. Just put your hands in your lap. And then we're going to breathe in through the side channels to the juncture and up and out. Like that breath is just ejecting through the crown of the head. And all our confusion about our lives, all of reality is just
Rob, can you
fading.
stop sharing
Yeah.
can you stop sharing so we can see you bigger? Because you're
I
tiny.
think, Bridget, was there a question? Oh, it was stop sharing so we can see you. Thank you, Katerina. Yes, so no, so Sabine, so you're gonna breathe in, like to the first 3 breaths, in to the left, out to the right, 3 times. Then thumb to index finger, in to the right, clearing desire and grasping, out to the left. The last 3 in through both, and out through the crown. So obviously the breath is coming and going through the nose, but the energy of the breath is leaving in the last 3 through the crown. And so you breathe at your pace. You do not want to feel like you're putting much effort into this. This is not, you should not be out of breath. You should be able to do this indefinitely. The text actually says you can do the breath 3, 7, 9, or 21 times. So, if you're going to do 21 times this way, 21 times this way, and 21 times this way, you need to save your energy so that you don't exhaust yourself, so you're not changing your breath, your heart's not feeling effort in this. A very easy breath, but there's a little bit of power on that last part. So let's just take a moment and just, if something's been alive for you, something just keeps coming back in your mind, today, yesterday, last week, last month, last year, something that just was big for you, that unsettled you in some way in life. Just don't go back and think about it. Just bring it to your attention that, oh yeah, there was this thing. I remember that. And it really caught my mind. I was yelling, or I was crying, or I was pissed, or I was whatever. It doesn't matter. Don't get back into it. It's like you're watching a movie. It's not you. It's just something that happened. And so that's selecting. And so now we're just going to let the breath and the attention clear. So if you can visualize your 3 channels, it's a very simple image. That right white channel, left red channel, blue central channel. And if that's too tricky, just breathe down and out, right? Just follow the breath in and follow it out. But if you can, use the image. We'll empty our breath together. Your right thumb to your right index finger, close your right nostril. Inhale. Down to the juncture. And then switch, close your left and exhale. 2 more, just like that, right hand. And you're expelling the output that's obstructing you. So you're breathing in clear, free energy. This is last breath. So pure energy. So there's no affliction in this breath coming in. And that clean energy chases out the breath going out, the old tired energy. That's a great question. And if when you're done with 3 breaths through the right nostril, out, breathe in right with your left hand closing. Switch and breathe out left. Okay, so lessening of desire, grasping. Now in through both nostrils, down to below the navel. The breath meets through both nostrils at the juncture and out through the central channel, up the skull, crown. And whenever you finish, just rest. Just allow yourself to visualize those three channels as really bright, like crystal, like ruby red on the left and diamond clear or white on the right, and this deep sky in the heart of your being, running through your central channel up to your crown, open to the sky above you. So as we're sitting, if anybody has any questions about the breath, the practice, the attention, what's being cleared, it's a good time to ask because we're going to do it again. I'll wait just a moment. Yeah, so this is what I was trying to say, but I had the sound from musicians off, so you might not have heard it. So the breath coming in is really gentle. It's just drawing it in and drawing it down, like drawing through a straw, right? Like just coming in, it's filling, it's that clean, pure prana filling, or it's the medicine of the breath, we can call it. And then when you switch, it's like that rocket taking off. It starts out slow and it builds, and the end is powerful. So at the end, there's actually kind of almost a snapping of the diaphragm or a pressing of the last of the breath out, so you're really empty. Like you want to clear the hucha, you want to clear the gek, you don't want it to be hanging out in your head. So you're pushing that breath out so it's totally empty. Not too hard, but with some effort. And you do that 3 times, each the same. And then same thing on the left, breathing in right, exhale left, some force at the end. And on the last 3 breaths, in, and some force at the end. Again, not huge force, just pushing, kind of an energy. And yeah, so usually, so it's interesting, right? The energies are actually all the same energy. We think they're different. Like, if I weren't ignorant, if I weren't confused, I wouldn't be angry. I wouldn't be holding on to my anger. I wouldn't be grasping at something that I don't have anymore, or that I want that I don't have. Like, that's innately, everything boils down to our own self-ignorance. Like if we were a Buddha, this stuff wouldn't bother us, but we're not Buddhas, at least we don't recognize, so it bothers us. But like when I don't want something, it's also because I really want something else. I don't want this because I'd rather have that. I didn't want it to rain today. It's because I want it to be nice out. You know, I didn't want her to break up with me because I wanted her to stay. So like there's different, if we don't have to think about it, but if you really allow whatever is you're working with to be in you, the energy of aversion, the energy of grasping, and the energy of being just ignorant or doubtful or confused, it's always all of a piece. And we don't have to worry about what part of that energy is stuck in us. We just clear it all out with the 9 breaths. So it's like taking medicine. You don't have to understand it. You don't have to understand the pieces of it. You don't have to figure out, oh, I'm clearing this piece now and then that piece later. It's like the antibiotic just kicks out the bacterial infection. The snake drain clogs out the stuff that's in the sink. You know, it just doesn't matter what clogged it up. It just gets cleared out. So cool, Sabina, I'm so glad. Yeah, this practice is the essence of everything we do in Ligmincha. I have literally never been I've been to like 75 retreats with my teacher, like 3-day to 14-day retreats with my teacher, and I've never seen him teach and not do this 9 breaths practice. He'll skip all kinds of other stuff, but he always does the Guru Yoga prayer I started with, and he always does the 9 breaths. Once he skipped it, then he realized he skipped it and we went back and did it. So like this is at the core. And in my mind, like if the only thing I ever give anybody in my life is the 9 breaths, like I'm happy. Because for me, this is the single most powerful, transformative practice for just clearing the things that live in us. Because it takes no time. It's like what, minute and a half, 2 minutes of your time. And like, you just feel better afterwards. And if you're like not sure if you feel better or not, try it again. Like, I guarantee, like, just allowing, not ruminating, right? We call it, isn't that great? Ruminating. That's what cows do because they have 3 stomachs. They chew, it comes back up, they chew it again, it comes back up, like they keep chewing on the same old stuff. And that's what we do with our thoughts and our feelings. We chew on it, and it goes away, and it comes back. It goes away, and it comes back. Just like, okay, it's time to just get rid of that. Let's go on. Let's be open. Let's be more expansive. Let's have new possibilities. Let's open that hand up and see what lands in it, like that bird in that image. So, yes, it can help with physical ailments because all practice, meditation, interestingly, even can help with physical ailments. There's a practice called Tro Core that I teach, Tibetan yoga, that I'll share about later, that I find extraordinarily healing. It's sometimes counterintuitively so. And I'm going to teach you another practice that I think is even more physically healing. We're going to do that next. But I want to make sure that we do this 9 breaths one more time so you at least have a little more experience with it. And I also, after this is over, and I have the mailing list from this, I'll send out an email to you, and if you subscribe to my newsletter on tibetanyoga.com, I've actually got a complete free course on the entire 9 breaths where I talk about the specific energies of each nostril, what's represented in each channel, what kind of things we work with, and it has guided practices. You can download them. It has the MP3 versions you can download. It's got handouts where you can download it and read it and follow along. So all that's free for you. You just have to sign up for the newsletter. And I send like 1 a month out sometimes. It's not something you're going to get much from me. But it is a free course that I offer for anybody who wants it. So let's just select again. And I would encourage you, even if you're like, whatever was in me, I'm done with it, select it again. Because there's always more. It's amazing how there's always a little bit more. And if you don't have anything, it's like, okay, nothing's alive right now, but there's always something in there, in our unconscious, in our subconscious, that's kind of digging around, that hucha, that gek, that black, the dark stuff, just the things we can't, that just haunt us every once in a while. So it's there, even if you're not sure what it is. And so we visualize the channels. And we'll empty our breath. Thumb to right ring finger. Close your right nostril. When you're ready, breathe in. I'm not going to count. You just count to your own pace, just whatever is comfortable. Switch sides when you're ready. Using your left hand, breathing in right. Out left. And again, when you're ready, hands in lap, thumbs to ring fingers if that's comfortable for you, and through both nostrils and out the crown. So again, just let yourself rest. Don't do anything. Don't change anything. Don't follow your thoughts if they come. Don't follow your feelings. Just allow everything to be. If something really does grab you, just notice you got grabbed and say, okay, and let it go and come back. Okay. So I just posted my website, tibetanyoga.com. It's one of two. We also teach yoga with my wife at another. But for now, tibetanyoga.com, if you just go there, on the first page is, join the email list. And like I promise, I won't send you too many emails, like maybe one a month or so. Maybe one, every month I usually send one. And as soon as you sign up, you'll get an email letting you access the free course. And I think it has 3 practice videos. And then I want to share just kind of 2, I hate the word, but it's a really good word, hack, kind of 2 hacks for this practice. One is, if you're on an if I don't have anxiety on airplanes, but my wife, she doesn't really like to fly, right? If you do this in your seat in coach class or even in first class, people are going to look at you like you're some kind of freak. Like, what on earth? And they're going to be afraid of COVID because you're breathing really hard. And it's like everything is just, it's a scene, right? Because you're doing the 9 breaths. But you've got some anxiety, whatever the situation is, you're at work, at your desk, you don't want to bother your colleagues and they're wondering why you're breathing so weird and do you need an inhaler or something like that. So you don't have to use your fingers and you don't have to breathe out hard. You can the finger adds power, the exhalation adds power, but if something is alive in you, you visualize the channels, you feel what's alive in you, and you imagine that you're just breathing in through the left, and you can feel it. You just follow with your mind down the channel, like it's just the breath coming on this side, and you're breathing out the right. You do that 3 times. Nobody has any idea. You're just sitting there breathing, and nobody knows what you're doing, but you can do the 9 breaths, and nobody even knows. And it's just about as good as when you use the finger and you push with the breath. So that I find really useful. I used to work in an extremely stressful job. I used to wake up at 2:30 in the morning so I could check my emails from Australia. And I worked 6 to 7 days a week. I used to have to take a satellite phone back in the day when I went on vacation in case they needed me to come back. It was awful. It paid really well and it was really awful. But I could be at my desk and I'm on a phone call with 23 lawyers and they're all fighting with each other. I was doing the 9 breaths and letting them fight before I quit. And it was really helpful. So there's that. And the other one is, and this is not me, this is my teacher. Literally, I was on the phone once with 23 lawyers. Can you imagine? I don't mind, I love lawyers. I have many friends who are lawyers, but 23 of them on a conference call is a bad idea. The conference call lasted for 30 hours. It was insane. People were going, it was just, ugh. Anyway, I've forgotten about that. It was really ugly. A day and a half on a phone with lawyers. The other thing I want to share is my guess, if I put up a poll right now and I asked how many of you brush your teeth before you go to bed, it would be 100%. Even if it's not true, you're going to be too embarrassed not to say I don't brush my teeth before I go to bed because that's just gross, right? Everybody pretty much brushes their teeth. Maybe you even floss, maybe you mouthwash, I don't know. Maybe you have a water pick, but I bet you at least brush your teeth. And so, we wash our face, we wash our hands, we brush our teeth, we go to bed, we wash our sheets because they get dirty because we were sweating last night because it was hot. You need to wash your mind before you go to bed. If you don't clean your mind and clean your heart before you go to sleep, all that stuff is alive in you, all that gek, all that hoocha is going to sleep with you. And where do you think your dreams are going to come from? It's coming from that stuff. And so one of the best times you can possibly do the 9 breaths is just before bed. And do it gentle. Don't worry about the forceful and it's just that you don't even have to think. It's just okay, I had this day. Stuff happened today. I'm just going to go to bed clear. So I'm just going to 3 breaths in and out, 3 breaths in and out, 3 breaths in and out, lay down. And I promise you'll have a better rest at night. You'll probably have more interesting dreams. It's just a hugely powerful way to just set yourself up for going to bed well. And so that is I like to do it in the morning personally. Like after I get up, I do it half an hour after I wake up. I do it every morning, but it's a really great nighttime practice. So we don't have a lot of time left, and I didn't teach you very much. I want to show you, I want us to do something really quick for the life force. And then I want to have time for questions and answers. So I can stay on a little bit late if people want to ask questions or share or anything that hasn't been in the chat. But if you have to go, I understand. But I really want to teach you one of 5 movements called the Sa Lung. These are exercises for the channels and winds, and they focus each one on a specific part of the body, a specific wind energy of the body, and a specific element of the body. And ultimately, with all 5 elements and all 5 winds, the most important is our life force wind. This is in the chest, it's the heart chakra. It's the space element in this tradition. And if you can balance your life force wind, and you can balance the space element, then the other winds, the earth energies, the water energies, the upward wind moving wind, the prana, the apana, the downward moving winds, all those start to line up because you've balanced the space of the heart, the space of the chest, the space of the body. And it's a fairly lengthy movement, but it's a pretty simple one. And so what we do, we're going to put our attention in our heart. We're going to put our hands on our hip. I'm going to do the whole breath and just demonstrate, then we'll do it twice together. So you're going to breathe, and I'll talk through it while I go. So you're going to breathe in, and you can breathe down just into the heart, or you can breathe down the channels and up to the heart if that feels comfortable for you. You pause, and then you re-inhale. And that re-inhalation is like igniting the medicine of the breath. And so you have this medicine in the space of the heart, opening up your space element, expanding your life force. Then you're going to take your right hand out, and you're going to open your hand, and you can just sweep around and close your hand, and then open. And you're imagining there's this cloud of rainbow light, like 5-fold rainbow light up over your head. And you're gathering it, like gathering a cloud, and bringing it into your central channel and releasing and gathering it again. You're going to do that 5 times with your right hand. And then you're going to extend your left arm out and gather it, and you're holding your breath 5 times with the left hand. If making the fist feels really hard, don't worry about it. It's part of the practice, but a lot of people find that just too much complication. So 5 times to the left. And then you're going to take your right shoulder. It's like you've brought all this rainbow light into your chest. You're going to move it around. So you're going to right shoulder, you're going to make the biggest circle you can, forward, up and back, 5 times. And then the left shoulder, forward, up and back, 5 times. And then you're just going to breathe out through the nostrils. But you can imagine that concentrated energy of holding the breath just expands out in every direction like dropping a stone in a pond. It just ripples out from the heart in every direction. And you rest. If it's too hard to hold the breath, if you have high blood pressure, you don't want to hold your breath too long, you could do 3 and then 3 and then 3 and 3, or even 1 and 1 and 1 and 1. It doesn't really matter. Traditionally, we do 5 of each. But it can take time to learn to hold the breath. And if you have a condition that says you shouldn't hold your breath, then don't hold your breath and just do the movement, and maybe hold it for 1 or 2 movements, breathe some more, 1 or 2 movements as you need. So always take care of yourself first. I'm not there with you. I don't know your situation. So just make sure that you're doing something that's safe for whatever body you happen to have today. So I'll walk us through it, but let's put our attention in our heart. And the heart ultimately is this infinitely open, vast treasury of awareness, of joy, of love, of compassion, of wisdom. But that restriction in our life, our experiences, our restricting thoughts, that rumination, it binds up the heart so that we are constrained. We don't feel free. We feel, the shackles of our life. We feel caught. And so we just feel, we don't have to think about the ways that we feel that, but we can feel, there are places in my life where I can feel constrained, where I don't feel entirely open. People I don't feel entirely open with. And once you have that, empty your breath. You're going to start with the right arm, doing that circle. So there's a rainbow cloud above your head. You're going to inhale into the heart, pause, and then re-inhale, igniting that, expanding that breath. Extend your right arm out in 5 circles, gathering that rainbow light from the right side into your crown and down to your heart. And then when you're ready, the left hand, same thing, 5 times, that rainbow cloud, circling and drawing it down into the chest. And then the right shoulder up to 5 times, as big as you can. And the same on the left. And just release the breath, no effort. Just allow yourself to breathe, or even better, be breathed. Just let the breath coming and going. Now let's just do that a second time. We usually do this 3 or 5 times. We're just going to do twice again, and we'll have time for talking if anybody wants to after. So we're focusing on the heart. And just feel like maybe there's already a little more openness. Just the holding of the breath tends to expand the chest and open and release some of the tension. So if nothing else, you can feel the physical openness that comes. But maybe there's a deeper kind of openness that's already there. But unless you're suddenly a Buddha, there's some kind of constriction still in your life. So we do it again. We breathe in, into the heart. Re-inhale, extend the right, encircle with that rainbow light. And left. And release from the heart, like those ripples across a pond in every direction, opening up the front, the back, the side body. Just rest. And feel that rainbow light just radiating through your whole body, through the whole field of your awareness, even into the space around you. And so that's this life force wind energy. This is the space element that we're just using the body, visualizing that rainbow light actually is also the light of the 5 elements. So it's blue and it's green and it's red and it's white and it's yellow. And so when we're bringing that in, we're expanding the space of the heart. We're also balancing and bringing in the energy of all the elements of our body, of the world around us, restoring that. And then it's also known as the 5 wisdom lights. So we're bringing in all the qualities of wisdom into the heart. And we're just clearing out that hucha, that gek. Because it's kind of like, when they first found like the Cheops pyramid, and it's been dark for thousands of years, right? It's like there hasn't been light in there for thousands of years. They open the door, they shine a flashlight in. It's like it doesn't take like 1,000 years for the light to penetrate the darkness. It's just like, oh, it's light now. Like once the light is there, you just, oh, I can see now. Everything is clear. Huh? Who knew? I tripped over a chair. That's what it was in the dark. Like you can just see. And so the way when we bring in these energies, when we open that capacity to clear, sometimes it's just like, oh, that thing is just gone now. It's like, huh, wow, I can't believe I was upset about. Oh well, and you go on your day. So I had really wanted to spend more time. I thought I was going to have a hard time filling 90 minutes with these 2 practices. And I didn't really have as much time to share about this second practice as I would like. So what I'm going to do is I have a course on my website that I usually charge for. And it teaches all 5 of the movements. So it has a movement for the head, the upward moving wind, the life force wind that we just did, the fire-like wind, which is for the belly. Then the wind for the air element is pervasive. It's our whole body. And so it's the whole body, the pervasive wind, and then a movement for the downward clearing wind. It's actually got like 4.5 hours of videos in it. But I'm going to set up a link so it's just donation based. If you want to take it for free, you totally can. If you want to make a donation, it's totally up to you. But I really want to have you have more support material specifically for this movement because it's a really rich movement and it's worth spending some more time on. But I want to be respectful of the time that we've all allotted this morning, this afternoon to be together and not take up too much more of your time. So I will share that also. When I get the list from Ray, we'll send this recording out. I'll send a couple of slides out so you have some visuals. And then if you sign up for, I'll also send out the access to the two courses. So the free course for everybody, and then the free course if you want, or by donation course for the whole 5 practices. And I would encourage you, even if you're not interested in the others, if you want, check out the rest of the one about the life force wind. It's the second one in the course. And you don't have to watch them step by step. You can skip around if you want. So, gosh, Ray, time went really fast. That does not feel like an hour and a half for me.
It
I
does
hope it
not.
was enjoyable for all of you. Um,
They say shamans step out of time.
yeah, unfortunately, the clock keeps ticking, right, man?
Or time doesn't exist.
Yeah, and still, I bet you people have like something to do in 30 minutes. So, to the
True. I
J.
want to say, if I may, I want to say that this is just a, without not bring it to an end. I'll let you bring it to an end when you're ready. But I want to say that this is just so beautiful, and I feel so serene after the breathing. Anyone else? Let me see hands. How did that work for you? It's just like so
Awesome. Isn't that awesome?
physical. And I just want to say, yeah, there's just so much I'd like to chime in. So
Please.
and learn more from you.
Yeah.
So I would like, in front of everyone, and Don Francisco does this to me all the time. It's like, I want to just say, I want to invite you again so that we could do this like in a month from now, for everyone to join us and do more practices and talk more about it. I find it fascinating. Um, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to hold on to say that it's unfortunate, but humanity, that would be me holding, saying that it's unfortunate,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah. That grasping energy. Humanity's bad.
no, I'm going to open it up. I'm going to say, open it up that, but there, we've veered away from nature and we created this anthropocentric reality that the anthropos, the human, are what's most important. And, the human doesn't exist without the space, which is the environment.
Right.
And the environment is what makes the human. So
Totally.
I just, there's just so much to say. Within that, making things anthropocentric, we made things selfish. So we acquired this, and we're all holding onto something. We're like, each one of us, to what we call the self. Like what you said, I like chocolate ice cream because I don't like vanilla, or I want, and there's a want, and
Yeah.
there's a holding on things, and that holding and that I want, basically, really gives limitation to our attention and our ability. And
Absolutely.
having been so close to death and having been in some radical practices like you yourself have been in the jungle, practices that are very different from what we know in the Western world, I was able to, like you, witness things for myself that in my Western mind I needed to see to believe. It really shook up my reality, and really just let it go. So I'm not holding on
Yeah.
to that reality. And the beauty of this work is that there's a couple key words that you brought up. It's like that brings us away from this world of assets into a world of virtues.
Mhm.
And when you talk about the beings and 20,000 beings and the 40 of us here and the hundreds of thousands of beings that were with us, um, all I have to say is that we're blessed with the presence of all these beings that were with us in the ethers, and that it's unfortunate that our asset reality and our limitation holds us back from that. And then we name it a belief system, and automatically we equate it with
reality.
another religion, or another religion that is not true, because our
Yeah.
religion is true and the other religions are not true. They're wrong. All the other religions are wrong, or ours is, or our view of the world is the only one. And with that said, again, I want to bring it back to you to bring it home, and I'll open it to any questions. I definitely would love to have more time with you, and I'm sure that everyone else,
I'm
anyone else
happy to come
wants to
back.
do this
I'm
again.
technically retired, so I'm at your service, Ray.
All right. The great thing. I'm retired too, and I hope a lot of our
Yeah,
friends
yeah.
retired from the
Oh
other
wow,
reality.
yeah, Greg, you look like you've got like definitely a major tickle sitting behind you in that window. That's gorgeous, the way the light's refracting across your window. So yeah, I wanted to share three things. One, there's a question. Yes, the blue channel, and I'll send an image, but it's really, you can imagine it like it's like a sapphire blue, right, for the central channel, and ruby red for the left, and then the white you can imagine as being like is as clear as quartz. Like, so we call it white because it's kind of hard to say. Imagine it being invisible, but like it's like a clear quartz channel, just of radiant white light, like sunlight coming through the space, but just this tube of it through your body. So that's how I visualize. And I think, it's summarizing, right? There's a Geshe I work with sometimes and I get to study with, named Geshe Gatso. And he was teaching this really complicated practice called Tumo that has so much visualization, you're visualizing deities and these different symbols and different parts of the body. And somebody asked him in the retreat, he's like, so complicated. What's the purpose of all this? And he looks at him and goes a moment, he goes, the same as all our practices, more joy. Oh yeah, that's cool. This tree behind me, this big tree, is a mango tree, and it's got some flowers in it right now. And the butterflies spend like lots of time in that tree. It's like a highlight of my morning is watching them start to come out. There's also a toucan that likes that tree, and there are a couple of great kiskadees who like to swim in the swimming pool. They get on the rail and they dive bomb the pool back and forth to cool off when the heat of the day comes out. So that's cool. That's nice to know. I can't see myself so much on the screen. But anyway, if there are any questions, any comments, any sharing, I'm happy to stay online. But I also realize people's days are moving on. So I was so happy to get to come with you. One thing we always do at the end of our practice is we dedicate the merit. We open sacred space, we close sacred space in Ray's tradition. But we also always want to say that, like, because we are interconnected beings, because we're not separate from each other, no matter how much we think we are, at the end of our practice, we just want to make sure that, like, we're holding in that space we've created in our hearts our capacity to care for and have compassion for and to share our wisdom and our resources with all those who come into our lives, those people we know, those people we've heard of, not just people. And when I say people, like sentient beings, those beings in the room, the trees, the butterflies in the background. And so the prayer that we use, and I'll just recite in Tibetan, is just, all pure virtue done through the three doors, I dedicate to the welfare of all sentient beings of the three realms. Having purified all afflictions and obscurations of the three poisons, may we achieve the complete Buddhahood of the three bodies. So thank you. And again, happy to stay on if anybody wants to share or ask questions, but I'll send you more information too, and you'll get the recording.
Rob, thank you. Thank you. It was an
Thanks,
honor to
Greg.
have you with us, and I look forward to talking and setting up another date. Everyone, I'll send out the email tomorrow with the recording and Rob's contacts, and also within a week we'll have set up a date to reconvene with maybe a mode of, like, I'm thinking, talking about what the common grounds are between Peruvian shamanism and Bon. I think.
That'd be fun. Yeah, that'd be fun.
Thank you,
Sweet.
everyone. And for all the Jaguars, Horpichai. Have a beautiful
Thanks.
day.
Thanks for coming. I really
Horpichai.
appreciate your time and being seen by you. Thank you.